To, I think it's episode 2. I should be able to remember that because that 2 isn't very many episodes, but we've got a few podcasts going on. This particular podcast is called the ToolShed, and its whole purpose is to help anybody and everybody inside the building industry with all of the common and costly problems that affect everybody across the industry. Now, in the ToolShed, our app, which is an environment for, as I said, everybody and anybody inside the building industry, this month our theme is health and wellness. So every month we have a theme. Previous months we've had mindset, we've had money mindset, all of these exciting things. And in this month, our focus is on health and wellness. And in my view, it is the single most important area of a successful business from the perspective that I believe that the number one influencer of success in a business is the owner of that business. And if the owner of that business is making poor decisions because of poor health, because of exhaustion, foggy brain, all these sorts of things, that affects the success of a business dramatically. So it's really important that we put our own oxygen masks on first. We lead by example to our team members, and we've got to look after ourselves. And there's at least 5 areas I believe that we've got to look after ourselves. And in this episode, I'm speaking to an expert. At least she told me she was an expert. Her name is Madison Vickers. Her name used to be Madison Hawes, but she got married just earlier this year. And full disclosure, she's my daughter. And so let me introduce you to my daughter, Madison, and I guess she'll tell you what her business is and why we're talking to her when we're talking about health and wellness. Welcome. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about the influences that you've had through your life that have made you who you are.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to my mum, Julie, for everything that she's done when it's come to me running my own business. Thank you, Mum. You've been the number one.
She's not watching. There's no need to go through that.
Just joking. Obviously, Dad has been a big influence on me in my business and my career and sort of getting that started. So I will say thank you to you, Dad.
My pleasure.
And as Dad said, should I call you Mick or Dad? I don't know.
No, we'll go with Dad. Whatever you're comfortable with, I don't mind.
Okay, we'll go with Dad then. So as Dad said, I am the nutrition and fitness expert in the family, at least that is. And I've been running a women's nutrition and fitness coaching business for the past 7 years. I do work full-time in my business. I have been sort of a Pilates instructor as well, personal trainer, all of that good stuff. So I'm well and truly dedicated to health and wellness of the women around me. But obviously I think it's very important for men as well. And today I think we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys can do to sort of get your mind, get your body in a place that is going to be able to support you to build your business and to get to where you want to go within that.
So predominantly the building industry is male dominated, but there's lots of females coming into the industry. So we're really just going to be talking about people in general. And as I said in the introduction, it's so important to look after yourself, particularly if you're the owner of a business. Other people are watching you. Your example is really important, and you showing up, bringing your A game every day is super important. If you look like you've just fallen out of a palm tree and you've got low energy, that's what people pick up on. It affects your decisions and so forth. So I think what we need to be really covering in this conversation are the common errors and maybe the myths around both diet and exercise as it contributes to overall health. So hit me with it. What do you think? What do you see as some of the more common mistakes that people make when they're either fueling themselves improperly or maybe not placing enough emphasis on movement and exercise?
Well, personally, I think they're equally as important, diet and exercise. They both play such vital roles in how you're going to perform each day. Something that I do find that quite a lot of people will experience throughout the workday is tiredness, brain fog, irritability throughout the later half of the day. And that purely will come down to two main things: sleep, firstly, and then how that quality of the sleep was the night before. But secondly, how you feel your body throughout the day, or what you've already eaten that day. And a lot of it can come down to blood sugar rises and blood sugar drops. So if you're experiencing like big drops in energy throughout the later half of the day, that could be because you've had some really intense sugar spikes based on the foods that you are choosing. So kind of balancing out your meals throughout the day is the best way to get around that. But yeah, definitely the biggest mistake I would see would be people fueling themselves improperly and then seeing these big sort of drops in their energy throughout the day.
So when we're talking about, let's talk about tradesmen as a rule, people on site, they generally don't have a whole bunch of time to prepare their meals and all of that sort of stuff, although we are hearing that things are starting to change, that they are starting to look at more healthy options. But traditionally, and I know when I was an electrician and an apprentice electrician, a chocolate milk and a wagon wheel and a pie with sauce was lunch. It was easy, it was quick, it was filling. When you were young, it didn't seem to matter what you ate. You could eat anything and it didn't seem to affect you. I found that mid-20s it started to affect me because I was walking in front of a glass building, a shiny glass building with my electrical tool belt on, and my guts were hanging over the tool belt, and it was the first time I noticed that. So there comes a point where you can't just eat what you want. And it starts to affect your weight and health and so forth. So what are the things that you suggest to your students, your clients, if you like, to help them shift their routine? Because it's just so easy to blame time and inconvenience and hassle and all of that as to why you're making these poor choices. So how do you get around that with your peeps?
I've got a little bit of experience with a builder who lives in my house with me, who
yes,
who he sometimes experiences those drops in energy and sometimes doesn't get himself quite prepared, and then it might be a potato cake at lunchtime. Not that he would get a Coke, but some people get a Coke. And for example, if you were to have a Coke and potato cake at lunchtime, that's going to be purely carbohydrates and sugar. Your blood sugar is going to spike really, really high, and then it's going to drop off. So whenever the builder that lives in my house doesn't pack his lunch, that might be something that can happen to him. So
what's his name? Let's name and shame him.
Jack Vickers.
Hopefully he'll be watching this.
That's your son.
In-law, let me state. In-law.
Yeah. So I think the biggest things that people can do is start to get to know yourself, get to know your habits, and get to know the areas that you would like to improve upon. And if you are someone who is really feeling time poor, or the day is getting away from you and I'm just going to quickly grab something from this shop, that's purely down to poor planning and not foreseeing or understanding how the day is going to pan out. And I understand obviously things happen and things change, but if you are already prepared for what could happen, then you're going to put yourself in the best position you can. So preparing your lunches and just making sure that you have healthy fats, healthy protein, and healthy carbohydrates. So a really balanced meal that you can grab and have for lunch. The best thing that I recommend for my clients to do when they're packing lunch is to just save what they had for dinner. So always make more at dinner time, and you can get those containers that are insulated that keep things warm. So if you've had a chicken curry for dinner that night, making extra and putting it into a container, heating it up in the morning and putting it into an insular container so it's nice and warm for lunch, or making, ham salad wraps and things like that for lunch. Just packing your lunch like they would have done in the olden days is probably going to be one of the most helpful things. And starting your day. So the builder in my house, Jack, he doesn't actually eat breakfast a lot of the time, and that's because he wakes up really early, leaves home very early, and his body's not quite ready to eat. And what I do recommend is when you do get the chance to eat, having a really high protein breakfast, like a protein shake, or some eggs or something like that as soon as you can. When you feel like you can start to eat in the morning, it will be really helpful as well. So a big breakfast packed with protein, and then pack your lunch as well, and just have that done the night before and kind of create a little habit, a little routine, so that can be something you do daily.
How does the incorrect, inappropriate foods affect your thinking? What have you got to say about that?
Well, brain fog, as I
And
said,
emotion,
it happens
like
when we...
thinking and emotion.
What, can you say that again? Sorry, my internet cut out.
Oh, God. Obviously, I'm not paying for the internet because I'd give you the best one. My question was, put myself back on the camera, was what impact does the wrong foods have for your thinking and also how you're feeling? So thought and emotion.
The wrong foods?
Yeah.
Oh, huge. So as I was saying earlier, with blood sugar dropping and rising and dropping, and us getting that brain fog, that's just going to stop all of our mental clarity. So if you're not eating a balanced diet, then you're going to experience the effects of tiredness, grogginess. It also comes from sleep. It's another really important one. It's something that quite easily people could fix quite easily, is getting a better sleep. There's like just a couple of little things that you can do to really improve your sleep. And that's, first one, make sure that your room is as dark as possible. We've seen some studies where the light from the size of a 20-cent piece on the skin is enough to wake the body up or wake that person up. And there's a really great book and resource called Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson, if you're interested in improving your sleep to help with your brain and your thinking and everything like that. So number one, darken your room as much as possible. Number two, put all screens away for a couple of hours before you fall asleep. It makes a huge impact. And we've heard that before, but if you've never actually put it into practice, give it a go. And the third one I think is really important, and that's meditation before bed. If you have 2 minutes available to just sit down and sort of meditate, so you switch your brain from busy work day to rest and relaxation mode. So yeah, I highly recommend looking back at your sleep as well and just investigating how that's going for you and if it could be better, what you feel like when you wake up in the morning. You shouldn't feel groggy when you wake up in the morning. You should feel pretty much ready to go in the morning when you wake up. So that sleep paired with balanced eating throughout the day are the two best things.
So I'm assuming that this can become a negative cycle, because if you're not thinking properly, if you're not making good decisions, you get a bit of lethargy. I can't be bothered. So you don't plan and you don't prepare, and you feel a little bit out of control during the day. So then you end up grabbing a pie or a potato cake or the things that are easy, probably high in calories and low in nutrition. They really don't feed the body, which then puts you into a more of a lethargic state, and you just keep going around and around and around in circles. What has been your experience with working with your people to be able to break that cycle? Because we think, oh, we just got to change our mindset. But if you're chemically imbalanced because of what you've been eating, it's really, really, really hard to change your mind. And then if you're not changing your mind, you don't change your actions. So how do we break that habit? How do we overcome that challenge? Well, I think a lot of people would experience it.
A lot of people do. And I always say to start simply. So when I work with a client in a premium setting where it's just the two of us, we'll always take it right back to the first thing that they do, like the night before. And start with their sleep, and then start to drink more water, and then start to add in more exercise and all of that kind of thing. I think as humans, we make these big, grand, we want to change everything. We're going to have this big change and we jump in too fast, and then it's really hard to kind of keep up with it. So I think starting really simply is definitely the best. If you started with your sleep, for example, and really focused on, you started reading that book that I mentioned, Sleep Smarter, and you perfected your sleep to the point where you just have like amazing energy throughout the day, then you might have the ability to look at your diet now and start to make sure that you are eating your 5 serves of vegetables, you are eating your healthy whole grains and your nourishing fats and things like that as well. I find that when people have poor sleep, and I see this a lot in young mums and young dads as well, because their sleep is interrupted. They wake up in the morning and having a bad night's sleep messes with your hormones, especially our hunger and our fullness hormones. And it will increase our hunger hormone and decrease our fullness hormone, making it harder to actually be able to feel satisfied from food. And when our body is then feeling quite lethargic, we kind of don't have the ability to even think about spending time making this delicious meal. We just want to grab something that's really quick. And a lot of the time we are listening to our brains in that sense. Our brain is asking for a quick hit of serotonin, and you can get that from chocolate, and you can get that from having a Coke and, just eating a meat pie instead of, creating yourself a meal. So I know that there are so many different things that you can do to improve your wellness, improve your health. But if you can just choose one, and one that you think you can control. So for example, if you are a young dad or a young mum, maybe you actually focusing all your attention towards your sleep won't be as conducive with that, because your baby is kind of waking up or something like that. So you might want to start with your hydration, because we know that lack of hydration in the body causes that lethargy, causes that brain fog, which then causes us to, grab convenience foods instead of making better choices with our nutrition as well. So choose one aspect, whether that be nutrition, whether that be sleep, whether that be hydration, or whether that be daily movement, adding in exercise, and then just go from there, one step at a time, one day at a time. Even getting yourself a coach as someone who can kind of guide you through that process would be really helpful. If you've gotten to 40 years old, 50 years old, and you're still struggling with something, then outsource that help through someone else that can kind of assist you with that, instead of kind of believing that you can do it all if you do need some help. So I would recommend that too.
How important is Buddy? I know that, I don't mean your dog. Your dog's name's Sonny, not Buddy.
Yes, Sonny.
Uncle Pat's dog was named Buddy, but he's not with us anymore. But having a buddy for exercise, we hear about how well that works. Is that something you do? And is there value in having a buddy or a group when you're talking about food preparation and accountability to stay on track? Do you use that? And if so, is it successful?
I mean, I did read a study that did say that you are about 80% more likely to achieve your health and fitness goals in a group setting or a group environment. So absolutely, if there's someone in your life who can buddy up with you, then do that. If there isn't someone in your life who you can buddy up with, or you don't want it to be someone that you really know, and you want it to be sort of a group of people that you can kind of work with, then joining different Facebook groups and different communities, joining walking clubs. Mum does that, or she used to. Joining walking clubs, joining cycling clubs, those types of things can be super, super helpful as well. We don't have to have all the information ourselves, and kind of allowing someone to work with us and teach us that, even though it's, a fairly basic thing, making food for ourselves and eating as a basic human thing, we still kind of need some guidance if we are off track. So highly recommend getting a buddy. You are absolutely you have a higher likely chance of achieving your health and wellness goals if you do have some accountability. My clients are so successful because I work with them on a weekly basis, and we do check-ins and we stay accountable, and they will log their exercise with me, and we sort of do group calls and things like that. So there are many, many different, groups like mine that you can join and get started. I'd highly recommend it, because as you said, it is the number one most important thing and the biggest indicator of success in business. So highly recommend.
How important is education? Because like you've said a couple of times, and we'll unpack this a little bit later, healthy fats and carbohydrates and proteins and all of that sort of stuff. And there's a fair few people I know that when you start to talk about that, they're either misinformed, misunderstand, or confused about that sort of thing. But to be able to get people to follow through, how important have you found the education to understand how things work, why things cause these outcomes, rather than, I know that there are just some people who go, just tell me what to do, what to eat, how to move, when to do it, and just be, blind faith. I don't know how well that works. I think they're probably in the minority. How important is it for people to get good education so they understand what they're doing, and then they've got a purpose and a reason for doing it?
Super important. There's a reason that I am someone who is qualified to provide meal plans for people based on their needs, but there's a reason why I've never done it, and I never would provide a meal plan for someone to follow, because I do want anything that someone starts when it comes to like a health and wellness journey to be a sustainable change for them. And following a meal plan probably isn't that sustainable for someone, especially because you're not always going to be in control of your food, and you do need to select your foods by yourself. Sometimes you're not going to follow the same meal plan for the rest of your life. So the education is a huge part of it. Clients usually say to me, this is the last program that I'll ever have to do. I won't need to see another coach again. The information that I have now is personalized to me. That's a big one. Just reading things on the internet that could be biased probably isn't the best way to go. Individualized and personalized advice that suits you is important. We all have such different needs. We're all very different. Like, for example, we have different likes. We have different, foods that we like. We have different cultural backgrounds. And it's important to think of all of those things as well. We might have different nutrition intolerances, likes and dislikes. So getting the information that you need, but getting the information that you need that is for you is the most important. So having someone maybe interview you and talk you through what would be the best way forward for you. As a coach, my job is to not just supply one way of eating, for example, like keto diet. I don't do any sort of specific one diet fits all type thing. I just kind of help people with a way that will suit them and their individualized needs. So the education is really important, but personalized education is even more important than that. And there is so much that you can learn about nutrition that it can feel overwhelming, but understanding the basics is actually quite simple. So understanding what proteins are, that's quite a simple task to learn about the protein sources. There's not that many. And understanding what kind of food groups are what are carbohydrates, what are your vegetables, what are your fruits, what are they classified as, and what do I get from those foods? those questions, could be learnt quite quickly. And if those were just the main things that you sort of started to learn about, like how to create a balanced diet with protein, carbs, and fats, and you just looked at those things, then that education would be, super, super helpful for you. So, yeah.
Sustainability. You mentioned a minute ago that a meal plan probably isn't sustainable. And being an absolute zealot and sticking to one type of thing, one type of eating, one type of diet, all that sort of stuff, unless you're a freak of nature, tends not to be sustainable either. I'm not saying how important, but is it okay? Is it too detrimental for every so often just having what you like? For instance, Sunday was Father's Day, and you and your sister bought around 2 huge thick apple pies, a dozen donuts and apple strudel, and we had it with cream. We don't eat it every day, but is that a good thing, a bad thing, an okay thing? What do you think?
Well, we got that because that's your favourite foods that you eat most of the time.
That's what I eat all the time.
Exactly. So that's why we got those for you.
You seem to do a good job of eating my food.
That's right. So my style of coaching is balanced coaching, as I would have been kind of talking about already. And the reason that I'm a balanced coach is sustainability. I want people to feel good, not just for the 8 weeks that they're with me or 12 weeks that they're with me, but for forever, for the rest of their lives. I want them to be able to just eat and feel comfortable with that, feel comfortable in their body, feel comfortable with, their exercise, feel comfortable with their sleep, and just be happy. Like that's what we all want at the end of the day, is just to be happy and to feel good. So including those sort of, I like to call them convenience foods, discretionary foods, is part of life. And if you are someone who wants to live by an 80-20 diet, which is what I like to live by, 80% of your nutrition coming from whole foods, coming from the 3 food groups that we need, our protein, carbs, and fats. If that's 80% of the time, that's 3 meals a day eaten, with your protein, carbs, and fats, like really healthy whole meals. And then there's like a dessert included in that as well, that would bring you up to that 100%, so 20% on the side. Eating foods that are high in sugars, high in fats, and not as nourishing for you every now and again actually isn't going to have a huge impact. It's when you start to sort of eat those foods more often and more often and more often, and you reach for those as a source of, sort of trying to help you if you're feeling sad or stressed or something like that. If you're just eating them out of pure joy with your family on Father's Day, that doesn't have any sort of negative detriments to you at all. And that's why I think being inclusive of all food groups in your diet, so every single food group, and not saying no to things. I don't say no to any food ever. I think that is definitely the most sustainable way to live. And that's sort of what I teach my clients, is how to live the 80-20 balance, because no one's going to fully give up ice cream, or no one's going to fully give up having tiramisu for dessert on someone's birthday, so we all need to be able to include those things, but just work on the 80% of the day that you can control with your whole foods as well.
What about the psychology behind that? Because you often hear people using the word reward, or I'm being naughty, like I'm naughty and I'm having that food that they know isn't good for them and they're being naughty, or I've been good, so I'm giving myself a reward of that. What are your thoughts on the psychology of the labeling of how people think about these foods that they know aren't good for them, but they rationalise, it's okay to have them from time to time, but they see them as a reward, or I'm being naughty. What have you got to say about that? Just how you process it. Eat it, but how do you think about it so it forms a bad habit?
Yeah, I think not putting emotions with food is probably the easiest way to put that. And when I say not putting emotions with food, I don't mean not saying, oh, this food makes me feel lovely, this meal is delicious, all of that kind of stuff. But for example, the words good and bad, is this something I have to work through with my clients a lot of the time, is they'll say, I've been good this week. And I'll ask them why. And they will say, because I went to the gym and I only ate whole foods and I said no to chocolate and things like that. And they are believing that means that they are good now. And then the next week I've had a bad week, and I'll ask them why. And they say, well, food was okay, but we did go out for dinner and I did have a couple of glasses of wine and some ice cream, and label themselves then as bad. And in reality, they've not been bad and they've not been good. They're just living their lives and they're trying to live in a more healthy and sustainable way. I think just removing the emotions from food in the sense of good, bad, naughty, that kind of thing is probably the best way to do it. I try not to say if I'm being good or if I'm being bad and relate those to foods in any way. So I just think try to remove the emotion. It's not going to give you anything good. It's just going to repeat a cycle. That's all it does, is it just repeats a cycle.
Is sugar addiction real?
Well, ask Mum.
I knew she'd come into the conversation.
I mean, maybe not sugar addiction, but probably the addiction to, much like the addiction to picking up your phone and opening up a social media app, that dopamine hit, that's what your body is looking for. That's what your body wants, is that dopamine hit. And if your body is getting it through chocolate every single time, every single day, or after every single meal, you want that something sweet. If you simply give your body something else, like a walk around the block, that's going to give you a nice hit of dopamine. Pat your dog, it could be reading 2 pages from your favorite book or listening to your favorite podcast, something like that. You'll find that eventually you don't actually need to have that hit of sugar. It's just your brain looking for dopamine and looking for a little bit of happiness, a little bit of a lift. So I'm not sure if sugar addiction, I just think it's your body looking for dopamine.
Yeah. Well, you just wonder when you find her in a wardrobe with a pocket full of chocolate wrappers and there's chocolate coming down her face, whether it's a problem or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some help.
I'm not sure at what point do we get help.
An intervention. We need to have an intervention.
We've had a few of those.
They don't work, it seems.
No.
Just want to start to get clear on some of the things we spoke about in the past. You mentioned good fats, bad fats. Let's just start with fats and then we'll move on to carbohydrates and proteins and all of this sort of thing. The world has gone through fits and starts and ups and downs as to what's good and what's bad. So what is the current thinking about fats? That they are, we need some, we got to stay away from some. What's the story? How do we know the difference?
We definitely need healthy fats. We definitely need fats in our diet. I know for women that are between the ages of sort of 16 to 60, a minimum of 40 grams of fats is needed for hormone production within the body, right? So we know we need some fats. The reason that fats got a really bad name back in the day was because fats are higher in caloric energy than proteins and carbs. So you could have just a small amount of fats in one hand and a small amount of protein in the other hand, and the hand with fats has many more calories in it, more than double than the protein or carbs hand. So that's why it got such a bad rap, and that's why they've done things like taken the fat out of whole milk, and created skim milk. However, the fat in milk is actually healthy for us and good for us. And so by taking that out, they're just reducing a bit of caloric intake, but they are also reducing on a nutrient that their body could really use. I mean, if they're not lactose intolerant. So we definitely do need fats. You want to be looking at things that are like our nuts, our avocados, olive oils, those types of fats. And then more often than not, staying away a bit more from, vegetable oils or fats that come in, fried foods and things like that. So definitely need to add in some fats every day. Milks, yogurts, cheese, nuts, avocados, those types of things, oily fish. They're the best types of fats, and we should be including those every single day into our diet.
Carbohydrates, is there such a thing as good and bad? If so, what do they look like?
I mean, we're not going to use good and bad, as we've already spoken about. But
I'm a slow learner.
Nourishing or more nourishing or less nourishing, just, more nutrients in them. Whole grains. So we want to have things like complex carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates, we've got potatoes and sweet potatoes. And a lot of people don't know this, but fruits are carbohydrates and so are vegetables. Vegetables are carbohydrates as well. So if you ever hear someone saying, I'm not eating carbs, but you see them eating a banana, then they are eating carbs. I think people they hear carbs and they think bread and pasta. And so definitely need to be including carbs. And the ones that we want to include are fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So we've got things like rice and quinoa and whole grain bread. Those are really important. The ones that you should eat less of would be things like, just plain white flour, because that's going to spike your blood sugar. And, if you just eat, for example, like we did on Sunday, just a donut on its own with no proteins or healthy fats with it, then that's going to do that big spike of your blood sugar and then that big drop in energy as well. So not that you need to not eat donuts ever or anything like that, but just, like I said, eating an 80-20. So if you had 3...
Was that the reason that you fell asleep halfway through the movie that we
Probably.
started watching?
Yes. And I thought, this is nice. I'm going to have a beautiful slumber. I'm going to eat some donuts with Dad, watch a movie. I didn't watch more than 2 minutes of it. I was asleep. And that's probably why. We had that. We had spaghetti and then we had apple pie. So, that's exactly why.
What about protein? So we can get proteins from all sorts of different places. How important are they? Is it only meat? Can you get it from somewhere else? What if someone's a vegetarian? How are we meant to look at proteins?
Proteins are the building blocks of our muscles. So if you are exercising or even not exercising, just aging, you need to be eating protein every day. And there are many different protein sources that you can choose. The biggest help that you will ever have if you are looking to lose weight or reduce body fat is increasing your protein, because a lot of us are severely undereating on protein. And that's the reason why a lot of us might be a bit above the weight that we want to be at. But the protein sources that you can get, we'll start with vegan first, would be from beans. And we've got lentils, tofu, and tempeh, which we gave you some tempeh for Father's Day.
Still in the fridge. Apparently I've eaten it before and I really like it, but that one's still in the packet.
It's a soy product high in protein, so a really good option. And then we come across into eating meat and eating fish. So any of your fish like tuna, salmon, whitefish, all super high in protein. Prawns, I love those. And then some of the more leaner sources of protein are going to be like your beefs and your chicken breast. Those are going to be super high in protein. Another one that is such a good food for any time of day is an egg, because you've got a really good amount of protein in a single egg, and also some yummy fats as well within that egg too. So eggs are such a great snack if you are going on a work site. Boiling those, I always have boiled eggs just ready to go in the fridge. Just a perfect
Can you have
snack.
too many?
I mean, you can have too many of everything.
Our friend Callum, who you've met,
yes,
that random person as you call him, he has two every day.
Yeah.
Every
Perfect.
single day.
Yeah. Absolutely
Good.
wonderful. Absolutely. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having 2 eggs in a day. I find that people will say, is it bad for me to have eggs because there's fats in there? Yet on the weekend consume 20 standard drinks in one day, followed by McDonald's afterwards.
We're talking about Jack again.
Talking about Jack and I a few years ago, probably, when we first met. Nothing wrong with having a couple of eggs a day. Maybe if you were getting to the point of 8 or more eggs, you'd be probably better off looking at getting some other nutrients in from somewhere else as well, not just from one source. That's why it's important that we have a bit of variety in our diet. And instead of thinking, is this too many eggs to be eating? Think, okay, I've got eggs in my diet, but what else do I have? What other source of protein do I have for my next meal? Mm-hmm.
Portion size.
Mm-hmm.
Is it important? If it is, how do we best manage it? Because is it something to do with the plate? Is it something to do with we've been trained to finish our meal? Apparently you've been psychologically damaged by your mother.
I was, yes.
And that's affected you somehow?
I was psychologically affected by mum. My mum is a Maltese woman, and if I ever left any food on my plate, I would always get in trouble. It was always, you have to finish that meal. Your eyes are bigger than your belly. You need to finish. There are starving kids in Africa. However,
which somehow helps if you eat.
If I get bigger, if I put on weight, if I eat too much food or I gorge myself, then that's going to help the children. So I'm sure that there are many other people who have also heard this. However, what that does is it pulls you away from being able to stay connected and in tune with your body and your own digestion. I've seen so many different things from like the internet, the TV telling us what portion sizes are best. But my portion size is going to be very different to my sister's portion size. It's going to be very different to your portion size. We're all so different. And I think instead of telling everyone to eat off a certain size plate or to even look at their palm and look at those serving sizes, I think the best thing to do is become more mindful with your eating. And there's a really helpful tool that I use with my clients for being mindful with food. And this is actually what I use and why you might, Dad, notice why I do leave food on my plate. If I ever do. And that's because I'm full and I've reached my limit. I don't actually need any more food and I'm honoring that. And it's not a waste if you put it away and then you eat it again later, which I always do. I'll always finish it at a different time. So the best tool for becoming more mindful is a series of 3 questions that I like to get people to ask just before they eat a meal. So if they sit down with a meal and let's say it's a chicken burrito, for example, the first question is, what is this meal? So sit down, look at your meal. It's a chicken burrito. Having a look at that meal and thinking, what am I getting from this meal? What are the nutrients that I'm getting here? What is this balanced? And kind of just letting your senses take in the food so that you drop into your body and arrive here. I see a lot of people, texting while they're eating, smashing the food down and it's gone in a matter of seconds. and then they will automatically reach for more food because they're not fully satisfied yet. And this can lead to that, fogginess and overeating and brain fog and everything. So what is this food? Become familiar with the food. How does it smell? What does it look like? Number 2 is, what level of hungry am I right now? Your body will always tell you how much food you need, more so than someone telling you what size plate to eat off. Your body actually knows what it needs. It's smarter than you think. Your body is always going to be smarter than your own brain. So the second question is, how hungry am I? And there should be about 4 levels that you think about when you are asking yourself, how hungry am I? How much do I need this food? And level 0, we always say, is neutral, and there's no hunger. It's quiet. I'm satisfied. I don't actually need any food right now. And I think honor that. If you don't need food, then don't eat food just because it's a certain time of day. It might not actually be best for you to eat in that moment. Level 1 is, I'm starting to get hungry and I feel like I should probably start thinking about food. So where I'm going to get my next meal, what that's going to look like. Number 2, level 2 is, I'm hungry and I'm ready to eat. This food is smelling delicious. It's going to taste delicious. I'm in the perfect position to be eating. And then level 3 is, I'm starving and I've waited too long. This is not good. I'm going to overeat now. So we want to always eat at level number 2. I'm hungry. This smells delicious. It's going to taste delicious. I'm ready to go. And then the third question, once you've started eating at about 5 mouthfuls in, eating slowly, putting your fork and knife down, just taking your time. After about 5 mouthfuls, I want you to ask yourself that same question again. Now, how do I feel? And notice if your hunger has actually, tuning into your tummy and seeing what that sounds like. Has it actually gone down from 2 to 1? And now I'm still hungry, but I'm not fully satisfied, so I'll keep going. Then once you get to that quietness, level 0, that's where you want to stop, because you don't want to go into minus where you're over full, because then you'll get like what happened to me on Sunday, where I was over full and just fell asleep on the couch. And whilst that's okay sometimes, like on Father's Day, it's not okay during the work day or, just during the normal life. So yeah, that can be like a really helpful tool to use when you're considering what your portion size should be.
How valuable, how important is coaching in this space? I mean, obviously, Builders Business Black Belt, we're working with builders and other sub-trades, and we promote coaching rather than trying to do it yourself, and the results speak for themselves. But there is a ton of people that go, I don't need it. I assume that there would be mindsets out there would say the same thing with what you're doing. What can you say to potentially open people up to going, well, this actually would be a good investment of money and of time, because the return I would get would be X. What's the return that they get if they get some help with this, if they open up to the idea?
Yes. I mean, I think firstly, our favorite Zig Ziglar quote, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep on getting what you've been getting. And if you've never worked with a coach before and you're not successful in the areas you want to be successful in, then give it a go, because, if you're already not where you want to be, then you might as well try. I mean, the benefits that come from actually achieving your goals in a set time with someone who's supportive and encouraging and someone that you trust, the results that you get are incredible. And I think I always say this to my clients, or prospective clients looking to join, when you invest in yourself and you look at bettering yourself, bettering your health, bettering your mind, bettering your body, it's not just you who gets the benefits of that. It's everyone around you, because now that you're feeling super happy, super motivated, you can come home and be a better partner. You can come home and be a better parent. You can be a better boss. You can, everyone else gets the same benefit that you get. And then it also motivates other people in your life to maybe do the same and take the plunge and maybe look at bettering their self too. And then it's kind of a ripple effect, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until everyone is feeling amazing. And, if we all just keep doing exactly what we've been doing, making no changes, or we're stuck in a cycle, then that's it's going to continue to create this negativity in our mind, this pessimism. It's not going to bring optimism to your life if you are continuously trying on your own and continuously failing. And then that pessimism will start to trickle out and affect your children and affect your partner and affect your workers. So I think there's more than I can ever even try to explain that you could actually receive when you invest in yourself and invest in a coach and invest in some help.
So because you've been taught so well with your business and you've niched your business, you're only working with young females, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
There would more than likely be a whole bunch of people watching this and listening to this podcast that may not be young females, but they may well know. It might be their daughters, it might be their sister, what have you. How do they go about finding you and having a conversation or finding out if what you do would help them? Where do they go?
So I think the best place to go is my Instagram. There's a lot of free content and things that I post over on there if you just want to start to look at what I do. My Instagram is @Body by Madison Coach. So you can go over there. Otherwise, I do have an email address. You can email team, TEAM, @bodybymadison.com.au and ask to have a chat to me. We can set up a consultation. I do have a 8-week challenge starting 17th of October, which is called Set Up for Summer. And although I don't love the word challenge when it comes to health and wellness, it does motivate people knowing that it's a short time. So it gets people in the door, and we've got a big wait list on that one at the moment. So if you want to get on the wait list or jump on my email list, when you're on my Instagram, if you click the little link, there'll be a couple of little buttons. You can either join the wait list or join my email list, and we can go from there.
Very good. So thank you very much for being on the ToolShed, our brand new podcast. And you're probably thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, that most people watching this are probably thinking, gee, he did a great job of raising her. I think that's what most people would be thinking right now. Is that what you were thinking?
It's all about you. Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be right.
It's my podcast.
I've got a podcast.
Have you watched your podcast? You better promote your podcast.
My podcast is called Find Your Balance. Yeah.
And where can people consume that podcast?
Anywhere you get your podcasts.
Right. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Yeah. All of those places.
And so forth. Very good.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It's, as I said at the start, it's super, super important. I think it's one of those things that we think we'll get to. There's a lot of excuses around it, and it can make such a profound difference when you just get some systems and processes and some education. So you're putting the right fuel in, you hanging around with the right people who think about this the right way as well, being in the right community. So you've got lots of great examples, lots of great support, because, if you're in the wrong community, if you're in the wrong company and they're dragging you into all of those bad habits, it can be profoundly destructive to the success of your business. So I hope this helped. I hope it gave you some great ideas. You've got some direction to go to. If you want to get some specifics, you know where to go. So thank you, Madison Eloise Vickers, for being on the ToolShed.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honour and a privilege.
It has. Not a truer word's been spoken. Thank you, folks. Bye for now.
Bye.